Recently, I received an overwhelming response in an article I wrote called Let's Not Call It Abuse. Women recounted painful experiences of invalidation, minimization, and silence from the very Christian people helpers that they went to disclose what was happening at home. Here's one woman's response from her Christian marriage counselor when she asked him, "Why didn't you ever confront my husband on what he was doing?" Her counselor said this: "I can't be your advocate because that would mean I was taking sides. I can't believe one person over another. I have to counsel someone in a way that doesn't drive them away. I have to be neutral." You see, the goal in marriage counseling is to stay neutral and not take sides. But the question, is that biblical when it comes to serious and repetitive marital sin? Most Christian people helpers stay silent and don't speak the truth because it may cause their client to get upset, walk away, or even stop counseling. But here are 3 reasons why I believe staying neutral is unbiblical and even dangerous to the individuals and to the marriage. First, it's because we don't tell the truth. As ministry leaders, we're not merely truth seekers, we're called to be truth tellers. If we're counseling someone who's caught in repetitive and dangerous sins and we minimize it, whitewash it, or ignore it, how are we helping that individual? What I find even more incredulous is that biblical and Christian counselors are encouraged to tell the truth when it comes to other sins. They readily tell a woman who's ready to divorce her abusive husband or struggling with bitterness and resentment that God hates divorce or that she's hard-hearted. But how come they never directly told her husband that his behavior was abusive and destructive, even though God's word is quite clear? Second, neutral is not neutral when it comes to abuse and other serious sins. Yes, it's true that both people in a marriage are sinners, and therefore we shouldn't cast more stones in one direction than the other. But speaking the truth doesn't have to be done with scolding and shame. It can be done in love and grace, but it must be done. When a people helper stays silent and refuses to name something for what it is, we're not neutral. What we're doing is we're silently colluding with the abuser that their behavior isn't that bad. It's not grievous enough to speak out against it, or that we agree that if only their spouse would be more respectful or more loving or more sexual, they wouldn't act that way. We are sending the wrong message by our silence, that we agree with the abuser's interpretation of reality. Dietrich Bonhoeffer, a martyred Lutheran pastor during Adolf Hitler's regime, said this. He said, "Silence in the face of evil is itself evil. Not to speak is to speak. Not to act is to act." When the church refused to speak out against Hitler's abuse of Jews, the abuse became culturally acceptable behavior. And last, we fail to love. We do someone no favors when by our silence we collude with his delusion that it's his wife's problem that he acts this way, or his wife's responsibility to fix this marriage. In Hans Christian Andersen's book, The Emperor's New Clothes, the king's most trusted advisors were afraid to tell him the truth about his new non-existent wardrobe. Instead, they allowed him to make a total fool out of himself, parading around in his nakedness, believing that he looked fabulous. It took a child who was willing to tell the truth to shake people awake to their fear and deception. The king's friends failed to love him well by their unwillingness to speak the truth. Refusing to call certain behaviors abuse and instead watering them down with more palatable words like mutual sin is like saying to someone who's been raped that she had sexual intercourse with someone who wasn't her husband. It might be true technically, but it diminishes the reality and intensity of the offense, and by doing so, we fail to love the victim and stand alongside of her, and we fail to help her offender by speaking the truth to him, and therefore we fail to help her marriage. Neutral is not neutral when it comes to abuse.